Well, hello, and welcome everybody with Dell and I here this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. If you're in Utah, fortunately, it looks like we're back to some sunny weather and nice to not be waiting in snow at the moment or in rain. We had some crazy rainstorms last week. Quickly, a couple of quick items to run through. I want to let everybody know that's joining us here. We will have a Q&A session here with Dell and myself as we wrap up our conversation, or we will be taking relevant questions throughout the hour here. So feel free to, whatever platform you're joining us on, to go ahead and type any of your questions in the comments or the chat features on those platforms. Dell and I will do our best to keep an eye on those throughout the hour and get to some of those questions. My name is Earl Foote. I am founder, CEO of Nexus IT Consultants. We are a 22-year-old outsourced IT support, cybersecurity, and cloud firm based here in Northern Utah, and we serve Northern Utah and beyond. Upcoming here on this Tech Beat podcast, over the next couple of months, we will have as guest Amelia Wilcox, CEO of Zennovate, Trina Limpert, CEO of Rise Next, Dan Beck, co-founder, CEO of 401 Go, and friends with Dell and I as well, and Christy Holt, founder, CEO of Vibonics. So stay tuned for information on those items from my LinkedIn or Facebook profiles, and we look forward to having you join us for those segments as well. But today we have the esteemed Dell Majors with us, and I'm excited to spend this hour with Dell and let you all get to know Dell and his journey a little bit more. So here's Dell's official bio. Dell started his career in e-commerce, buying salvaged freight to sell on eBay. He turned that hobby into a business called Bike Wagon that he and his father grew to 10 million in revenue before exiting. After selling Bike Wagon, Dell has been investing in e-commerce brands, recently buying Grand Trunk, a hammock and adventure travel company. Outside of entrepreneurship, Dell runs a coaching business called Venture Anyway, that helps entrepreneurs grind less and live more. So Dell, that little principle right there has been one of the things that I've been most intrigued by in your story and most impressed by. Seeing the way that you've created a life of distinguished balance where you are living your dreams, achieving the things that you want to achieve, but also having the time to do all the other things you want to do. So we'll come back around to that a little bit. That's a topic I want to dig into a little deeper with you and kind of figure out some of your formulas. But let's just start, Dell, with how did you get to where you're at now? I know you grew up in Rose Park. Those of you that are joining us from here in Utah, Rose Park is a small, very blue-collar kind of neighborhood right outside of Salt Lake, on the west side of Salt Lake, not far from where I grew up, in another blue-collar neighborhood in West Valley. And so, how did you go from average Joe, average kid growing up in Rose Park, Utah, to building an e-commerce brand, doing 10 million in revenue a year, selling that, and now having multiple different ventures outside of that? Tell us a little bit about the story.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. It's good to be with you, Earl. And I've really appreciated getting to know you. So grew up in Rose Park. The short answer is I had a lot of helpers and mentors that I kind of latched onto. And I was always willing to, ask people like, I'm doing all these different things. What should I do differently? Right. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I was buying and selling product on eBay, right? And that was, a lot of people they started doing that and they stayed with that forever. There are a lot of people, I was doing that 20 years ago, and there are a lot of the same people that I would buy and resell with 20 years ago that are still doing that today. I can go to that same store, NPS, and see people that I recognize and know. And I did that for a few years. It kind of gave me a taste of entrepreneurship. But then, I served a mission for my church in Portugal, and then I got back, and I'd always wanted to ride my bike across the country. So two friends and I, instead of going the long way, we rode from Canada to Mexico. And on that trip, I realized, man, I love cycling. I love adventure. I love that I could leave for 6 weeks and be on this adventure and journey. I don't think most jobs will allow for that. So if I ever want to do this again, and if I want to have a life that lets me do this, I kind of have to be an entrepreneur. And as I got more and more into entrepreneurship, I realized, reading books like The E-Myth, for example, right? Realizing that, a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, they own businesses, but they really own glorified jobs where they have to be, well, they have to be in the office every day. They have to keep going and hustling to make it happen. So pretty early on, when I was 22, 23, that idea sprouted of, okay, create a business. Great. Dale, it's great if you can make money online selling bike parts, but how awesome would it be if you can create a system that gets a lot of other people involved and makes it so, we can all make money together and where I don't have to be involved, right? So they can run this thing without me. So I was really intrigued with that idea of creating a business. And I remember meeting people at NPS and they would say, who used to always be regulars. And they said, it's not worth my time to come anymore. And I thought, that's really interesting. It's not worth your time to come anymore. I think it's always going to be worth my time to come here, and wait in line for an hour a day before and hang out with all of you, because I can make $500 in a day or $1,000 in a day. This is great. It's always going to be worth my time. But over time, I realized, there are bike swaps where I can go to a bike swap, and instead of spending $400 in a day on product, I can spend $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000. So I started going to all the bike swaps. And, when I went to NPS, I would go there every single day that it was open, sometimes twice. And I would be there an hour before everybody else waiting in line. So I could be the first in line to get the new things. And then when I went to bike swaps, I went to every bike swap, and I would buy a booth to sell just so I could get in early, even though I didn't need a booth to sell. I bought a booth as a vendor just so I could get in and then make deals with everybody that's in there. I went to every swap, and same thing. It's never going to be too important to do a bike swap. And then I discovered trade shows. And, the first trade show I went to, I didn't even go to buy parts. I went to get free posters and pins, and I had no clue what I was doing. So I guess that's to sum up that answer, hey, how did I get into what I was doing? Very slow and steady. It took me 12 years to do, to go from 0 to 10 million in revenue from probably, once I legitimately started my business with my dad, that was 2004, and we sold at the end of 2015. So it took a long time, but there was always this perspective of I want freedom, and I'm always going to, find the most valuable way to spend my time.
Very cool. Great story, man. I'm so glad that, and I don't think that I've heard that entire story. So it's great for me to hear and learn that as well. And it sounds like to me, you mentioned, some of the people that, 15 or 20 years ago that were your peers really, buying salvaged bike parts and, selling them on eBay or wherever on the internet that are still there, but you've grown. You went well beyond that. And for me, it sounds like that's probably really tied into a vision of something, something more, the decision to live and execute deliberately, and to work on achieving some specific things. So you kind of upscaled along the way, until finally, you have a recognizable e-commerce brand, and very successful website that is, selling and distributing, and shipping bike parts all over the U.S. Ultimately exiting from that. Is that accurate? Do you think that the difference there is a vision?
Say that, I wrote down lacked vision, and that's what or that's what a lot of the people standing in line still, because they definitely weren't less intelligent. Like a lot of these guys were really capable. They were making more money than me, even waiting in line and doing this. They may have been making more money. They may have been smarter. But it was that idea of the next level, the next level, the next level of thinking ahead. And yeah, my vision was, I want to have a business that's going to work without me. Where a lot of people get stuck, I don't want to have employees. Oh, that'd be frustrating. Oh, I don't want this. I don't want this. And I think that's one of the parts about being part of my strength and weaknesses are I'm really good at believing and getting excited about this future, but maybe not so good about knowing everything that's entailed. So before I even know what I'm getting into, I'm like on the path running towards it. And then you kind of have to figure it out as you go. But I think that's it. 100% is the vision for yourself and realizing that it's okay if it takes a long time to get to, but it's just a day in, day out thing.
Yeah, that's actually something I want to talk a little bit about here. So first of all, you initially made a decision early on that part of your journey was going to entail having the freedom and time to do the things that you want to do outside of operating a business or trying to sell whatever it is that you're selling, right? And you kind of made a decision that you were okay with the process going at your pace. Is that accurate? It wasn't like so often entrepreneurs, we say, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to be an overnight success and I'm going to work, 120 hours a week and I'm going to do everything possible for the next 5 years to really make this thing hum. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. And that's a formula that often works, right? For many founders. You took a little bit different approach. You kind of said, I'm going to take this thing at my pace and I'm going to make sure that as I create it along the way, I'm creating something that's sustainable and giving me the balance I want in life. Is that accurate? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I don't want to downplay myself or sob story or anything else, but I don't think I planned for like, hey, this is going to take forever. I was just willing to do whatever it took because, anything I did, I was never naturally awesome at anything I've ever done, really. So whether it was, school or, I wrestled in high school, I was 82 pounds my freshman year. And the lowest weight class is 103 pounds. So, of the 8 exhibition wrestlers in 9th grade, I think I actually was the first or second most of the time, but I still would get clobbered and destroyed wrestling my freshman year. And that was just hard. And I just expected that. So I was very willing to kind of bang my head against the wall, getting going because, I knew, it's going to be worth it. And, why not? And I was very willing to work for it. I didn't need to have some sort of like instant success, really.
Yeah. So it's so interesting how similar our journeys are in so many respects, and I would say I would lump myself in that category of not having any really amazing standout natural talents, right? Like it's all been stuff that I've had to work on and develop. And obviously we all, have our own capabilities and strengths. And I think that the older and more mature you get, you learn to understand those, you learn to key in on them, and you learn to really, exploit them and obviously grow them, right? But for me, it's always been a process. I was never the fastest guy on the field. I was never, the best guy on the basketball court. In fact, I was tiny like you. I went into high school at 4'9" and 95 pounds soaking wet, so I was tiny. It was hard to compete in competitive sports. That's why things like biking, were my choice, kind of more individual sports that I felt like I could excel at a little bit more, But it's always, for me, it's always been, you have to work and develop, those things. So tell us a little bit about some of the, and I realize, we've got to conversation here. We're going to dig into a lot of this, but what are some of the tools, the formulas, the methods that you found to be the most valuable to you in your journey and contributed to your success?
Yeah. Well, so first off, I really think that having and kind of maintaining a vision for what I want my life to look like is probably the biggest, has helped me the most. And a lot of that has been developed through a lot of reading. I'd probably read 2 books before I was 20. So, and my Audible now, I've got like 400 or so. So I love reading. And that early on, just learning what's available to you and how other leaders have built businesses and what other people have achieved and what other people have attained, whatever, like that's been really helpful. So maintaining a vision. And because I think that, and we'll get into a few of the tactics that, hey, for me personally have really been helpful. But if you don't have, they say that tactics without strategy are the noise before defeat, right? And a lot of times as business owners, you're like, hey, we should all have a morning routine. It's like, if you don't really have a vision for your life, getting up early, or staying at work, whatever, all those things probably aren't going to be as impactful for you. If you don't have a really solid vision for where you're going and a belief for what you're trying to achieve, not a belief in what you're trying to achieve and just some place that you're going that really excites you. Right. So after that, assuming you have like, oh, here's where I want to end up. Here's the types of things I love doing. When I've done this type of thing in the past, it hasn't felt like work. I love doing it. From a very tactical level, like a system standpoint, taking 2 hours every week and doing a weekly review has been really helpful to me to say, oh, how did I spend my week last week? What are all the roles that are important to me? How am I going to kind of honor each of them next week? How am I going to spend time? Focusing on those roles over the next 5 days and going into each day really. And actually I have an article on my LinkedIn called The Dry Run, like a tips for planning sheet that you can reference that talks about my planning process. That's been one of the things that's really helped me the most. And then secondly is for years and years and years, I was always frustrated because I couldn't do things consistently. I wake up and then I get into the office and then work dictates everything I do because there's fires and there's emails and there's things that I'm excited about. So much more excited about than writing in my journal or studying French or reading something else, doing personal reading. So I wasn't consistent doing those things. And I found about 7 years ago, I realized that if I wake up early and have time for myself before anything else happens. So for me, that means, the hours of like 5 and 7, 4 and 7:30, 4:30 and 7:30, depending, then everything else seems to go a lot better. It's kind of like with my family now we have 6 kids. If we can eat dinner at 6 o'clock, then the whole night it goes so much better. We actually clean the kitchen. I read to the kids. I'm mostly happy with the kids the whole evening. And then I go to bed on time. But if we eat dinner at 8, and then I'm mad because I'm not going to be able to go to sleep, and so I can wake up at 4:30 and I've got things planned already. And then I'm short with the kids and everything goes bad. It's those little things though. So for me, planning every week, having time to myself every single morning, everything else magically seems to work out more. And I feel more in control of what I'm doing. But that doesn't work if I don't have a life vision.
Yeah. That's some really great insights here, Dale, and tying it all back to like being committed in heart, mind, and soul, towards a specific, whatever it is that you see, right? An outcome, a goal, some vision. And then really what you're describing is having the discipline to choose to attack that, that vision that you see, in a deliberate manner. And particularly, I feel the same as you. I didn't study business. I studied civil engineering, started out in architecture, studied civil engineering, and eventually made a transition into IT. But having been an entrepreneur over the last 22 years, I've had to learn that you have to be sufficiently humble to say, I don't know what I'm doing in this situation. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the skills, but I'm 100% willing. And I know that I can learn those things, right? And I'm 100% willing to find ways to educate myself. And so you talked about, your Audible habit, having hundreds of books that you've gone through now that have helped you along the journey. For me, that's been very much a part of it, but also being involved in one way or another with other like-minded, growth-minded individuals has been extremely important for me along my journey, and learning from them, learning from their mindsets and from their habits, and the lessons that they've learned along the way. And so that's actually, you and I know each other because I'm in one of your mastermind groups with some very interesting entrepreneurs from around the country, and I think, honestly, it doesn't matter if you get an MBA from the most prestigious school, in the US or in the world, whatever, right? The reality is being an entrepreneur, you're going to find new challenges around every corner. And you have to be willing to stretch yourself. You have to be willing to say, hey, honestly, I'm out of my depth. I have no idea what I'm doing here, right? But I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to find the right resources to do that. So our friend Nina Bullock, and hey, Nina, welcome. We're glad you're here with us. She asks, what are 3 of your top recommendations for leadership or professional, personal development books? Let's start there.
Yeah. The first one that came to mind, offhand, is I love Patrick Lencioni. He has several books and these were really good books for me to get rolling, like when I didn't want to read, because they were storybooks. They're like little fables. It's a couple hours and it's a story and entertaining. So I loved those. The 4 Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive is one. And he also wrote a book called The Advantage that basically sums up everything that he shared in his fables, for those of you that can sit through an actual grown-up book, which I can now do, so that's really good. The Advantage, and then other leadership books. Nothing. The only thing that's coming to mind as I'm thinking about that is, as a leader, you want to be going somewhere. So whatever help, I really like reading Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, because that kind of it puts, it brings a really good perspective on oh, wow, where am I going? What's my purpose? I think it's really hard to follow somebody that doesn't know where they're going.
Yeah.
Right? And if you can have an aspiring vision and really stand for something, it's a lot easier to follow. So I think anything that helps you get more clear on who you are and more motivated to that end is, good from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, very good. Maybe one I would quickly add, and actually thanks to you, a recent read that we've read, in the mastermind group that you and I collaborate with. That is The Power of Habit. I've probably throughout most of my career downplayed a little bit. While I'm very capable of being very structured, I also like to have some variety and have a bit of an unconventional path. Maybe call it the artist or the creative side in me that that kind of doesn't want to be overly structured. And so I probably throughout my career downplayed a little bit the power of routines and habits. And that book was really enlightening, particularly the science behind habit and how it really plays a significant role in our lives and a significant role in helping you achieve, the things that you want to achieve, and then the role it's played in shaping our history and events throughout our history. Very fascinating book. And thank you for obviously turning me on to that. It certainly has changed, shifted my mindset a little bit towards, considering being a little more structured all the time. Not that I'm not. Like, you have to have a certain amount of, regimen to your life, I think, to always bring things within some control, and help you have controllable elements so that you can create the environment that creates your success. I've just always favored a little bit more of an artistic approach, to it all. And that's actually, the next topic would be kind of fun to dig into here, is that we've had some really, in our mastermind group, I've had some really interesting conversations and have a massive dichotomy of personalities and characters in this group. We've got Scott Paul, whose formulas are not even close to what, people who have written self-help books and professional development books and stuff like that. Scott Paul would throw them for an absolute loop, and they would be crying heresy because he's so unconventional, but it's worked for him, right? And then there's those of us in the group that are just hyper regimented, like really, really, really have their structure set up every single day. And you're not super far from that. You're a very structured, regimented person. And then you've got some of us that lie somewhere in between all of that, right? And so that's been really fun. And for me, it's been kind of the affirmation of a lifelong thought that we all just kind of find our own path, and that's okay. Like you don't have to take somebody's formula, whether that's in some book or in some peer group or mastermind group or whatever it might be. You don't have to take somebody's formula and live it carte blanche to create what you want to create, right?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, maybe, defining your own path and your journey, along that topic.
Awesome. And that all makes me laugh because I've really enjoyed our group. It's so amazing and so fun, and my mind has been stretched. And I also feel like half the time I'm like, I'm not really capable to moderate this group. So we're just, here we are. I love you guys. Let us explore and discuss. Like, it's really fun. So I would say that, yeah, we're all like, I tell the story. My son, I took my 10-year-old on like a little daddy date type thing, right? Like, we were going to go to a movie. We were going to see Spider-Man like 2 years ago. He comes into my office at 4:30 and says, "Hey Dad, we're going to go see Spider-Man, right? Like, it's going to be awesome." And I'm like, I took my 7-year-old to Spider-Man 2 weeks ago. I've seen it already. I wasn't looking forward to that all that much, but I'm saying, okay, but I really want to be a good dad. And I think identity is really important. Like, that's one of the things I said. I'm a great dad. I want to be a great dad. I strive to be an amazing father. But I wasn't having those feelings. So I said, hey, Kimball, yeah, what should we do? So I check into that. Okay, we're going to be excited. Yeah, what should we do? When should we go? Trying to gather some excitement. And we came up with the idea that we were going to Healy to the movie theater because we live a mile away. Those old shoes that have wheels on the bottom? He has a pair, and I've got a pair too. And
I love the fact you have a pair of those, by the way.
So I have a pair of those. I'm pretty good at them. Yeah. And I hadn't worn them for 5 years. But I'm like, okay, we're gonna Healy to the movie theater. Oh, and then we'll get Blaze Pizza, and then we're gonna get a cookie, and then we'll go grab some treats at Harmon's on the way, and then we'll go to the movie, and by once we put that story together, my whole energy changed, and his energy changed too. We were like really excited, and I'm thinking, I need to wrap up work because we're in a hurry now, and this is gonna be amazing. So not everyone. If I said to Earl, you and I are going to go Healy to the movies tonight.
I'm down.
And maybe, okay, you'll be excited. But a lot of other people would be like, Dale, that just doesn't get me going. Sorry. We do a lot of bike touring with our family. Like, we'll go for 2 months and I'll sleep in a tent with my wife and all of our kids. And that's like an exciting thing we do. And most people are like, you couldn't pay me, all the money in the world to go and spend, a month camping. But for me, I'm an adventurer. I'm this, I'm that. So we all are motivated by things, very unique to us. And I think that's it's up to us to figure out what that is, what we really value. So we can then go and craft our day and our routine in a way that gets us excited. And I think the three words that I strive for is, I think everybody should be deliberate in how they, in where they spend their time. And maybe not all the time. You don't have to, but at least know, like, if you're going to get on social media every half hour to check on things, at least know you are. And don't do it out of habit. If you're going to wake up in the morning and the first thing you're going to do is grab your phone and go into social media land for 30 minutes, at least make that choice and say, that's what to become the person I want to be. That right there is going to be the best way for me to spend my first half hour in the day, whatever. But at least know, a lot of us do things out of habits that we weren't intentionally creating, that we didn't intentionally create. Right. So I think, being deliberate is important, because the world wants different things for us than we may want for ourselves. So the second thing is, whatever you're doing, you should be engaged in it, because we're meant to be engaged and excited about what we're doing, and not just go through the motions. And I think, very similar to being engaged is just being present. Like, it's nice to be, we should be happy and present where we are. I'm really enjoying, I'm with Earl right now because I planned my day ahead of time. I know what the rest of my day looks like, and it's all taken care of, and it's going to be fine. I'm not stressed and worried about, everything else that's going on, and, what's going to happen right after this call, just, to be able to be where you are. And that's why I think I create systems that allow me to do those things.
Yeah, very cool.
Says, where can you buy adult Heelys? I bought mine 15 years ago.
I was going to say, we got a really important question there from our buddy Dan.
Yeah, no. So, who knows? But I did. Yeah, I got a concussion once on my Heelys, but that's another story for another day. But I did have a scab on my face that was the shape of the United States of America.
That's gotta mean something. Like, that's gotta be worth something, to have that on your.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, shout out to our buddy Dan Beck. Dan is in our mastermind cohort with Dell and I at the moment. It's Dell's. It's your cohort, but we're all guests in there with you.
It's our cohort. Yep.
Yeah, and I think our buddy Kyle Ivans is here with us as well. Both really great entrepreneurs that have had great trajectories. So maybe to key back into what you were exploring there, and this has been something that I feel like has been very valuable for me in my journey. And honestly, sometimes you probably don't really come to some of these realizations until you're maybe hitting middle age in life. And what I'm talking about is, I think, really to get so purposeful, and as you mentioned, be deliberate and engaged, you need to understand who you are as a person, and that requires self-discovery, right? It requires taking the time to try a lot of different things and to say, like, I like this, and this is really great, and I don't care for that, and these are my talents as a person, and really investing in understanding yourself, so that you can define who you are, ultimately define for me, defining a personal mission, and not just a personal mission, but a mission that ties into who I am as an entrepreneur, that ties in who I am as a father and a husband, and who I am as an individual, and my other roles. You mentioned this, this concept of having different roles in life, and we all have them, whether we intend to have them or not, right? But you can choose what those roles are, and you can choose to be purposeful about those roles. But it's hard to be purposeful if you don't really have a defined direction. And so for me, that self-discovery process was really important here, once you kind of establish, okay, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, this is what I really dig, this is what floats my boat. I think you can really begin to find some stride or find flow, whatever you want to call it, by beginning to be purposeful about how you live, where you spend your time, how you spend your time, who you spend it with, what activities you spend that on that generate generate positive results and outcomes for you and your business and your family and whatever roles are important to you, right? So that's really, really great. I'm glad that you you keyed in on that there. And by the way, if you're following the chat on LinkedIn, Nina Bullock's got some really great comments out there. Take a look at those. So you talked about being present. This, I will tell you, has been one of my greatest challenges, throughout a 22-year entrepreneurial journey, particularly finding the right balance of when to turn off, right? And when to allow yourself to be present in that bike ride, and not thinking about everything that happened at the office today and all the things that I got to do tomorrow and the problems we encountered and how are we going to solve that, right? How do I be present at the dinner table with the family? How do I be present date night with my wife, right? How do I even be present on vacation? Because like when you're an entrepreneur really invested in what you're doing, it can be all consuming all the time. And I can tell you, like I struggled significantly as an earlier entrepreneur, finding the right balance and finding the ways to be present in my other roles in life. And it's still an ongoing journey for me. I mean, frankly, right now Nexus IT is exploding. We are growing so fast that it's requiring a significant amount of extra effort from all of us on the team, including myself. And I'm back to working hours that I was working, 15 years ago, working 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. at night, some days, because, we've got so much on our plate at the moment. Now, we're getting through it. We're hiring new team members. We're getting help. We're systematizing and automating and doing things to get us where we need to be. But it's going to take a few months. And so for me, this concept of being present has always been difficult. Tell us a little bit about your formulas there. What have you learned? What's been helpful to you?
Yeah. Well, first I would say good luck, right? And then because it's hard. And second, I would say that, I love with all of this stuff, I love the idea of the law of the harvest, and also that there are times and seasons for everything. So, you have, even when you may plant, you wait and water and tend, and then you have, you harvest, and there's different levels of work that you put in different phases. So there may be a time in our business where it's hard to always have an equal split of attention between our family and our business and all these different things. Sometimes we'll have to reprioritize, and that's okay. But if it's all the time, then maybe we're going to be upset here in 20 years that we didn't figure it out sooner. We say, oh, I thought I was just, doing this because my business really needed me. Oh, but that was actually 20 years worth of my life. And now my kids are grown and they don't really like me anymore. I heard that my kids may stop liking me at like 14. And that drives, that drives a lot of we've had conversations about this, right? So that idea of, yeah, sure, be imbalanced for a month or months even or whatever. But if it's going to be 5 years, maybe you do need to figure that out. And maybe that may not work. So one thing that helps me be present is by, I'm worried about everything that won't get resolved. So, and I think that's how we work. If we don't have a system that we trust, if I have to be, if Earl says, hey, meet me at 11:50 for the LinkedIn thing, and I don't trust my calendar and I don't check things well, I'm going to be stressed the whole week. Like I need to remember to meet Earl at 11:50 on this time, or else, that'll be really bad. And I'm going to think about it. No, but I look at my calendar every single day, and I know when things come up and things happen, and I know that when every note that I ever make in Trello, I actually review every single week on Friday because I've made time. I blocked out time on Friday to say, oh, let me see what's in my world. So anytime I have a thought, oh, write this thing down. I'm not worried about, because I'll reprioritize the thing on Friday. And if it needs to get done, I'll get it done. And then if I spend that time on Friday for 2 hours planning, then, and put the right things into my week the next week, I'm just going to say, if I do these things on next week, it's a win for me. So if I finish my day and get those things done, then I'm just done. And it helps me be better at just checking out and being done. But, it helps me. It doesn't make it, like I'm glad my door shuts. My wife can't hear everything I'm saying, but I still focus on, being present but man, I've made huge strides from from other times in my life. And a lot of that comes down to having a system that works for me. So things that I need to get done, they're all in a place. I really love the book Getting Things Done by David Allen, and he kind of lays out a system for that, and that could work for some people. I live by that and probably have for 7 years or so, and I have a lot less anxiety around what I do because I trust my system.
Yeah, very good. That's certainly not sometimes not an answer that you might expect, right? Like, how do you be present? We create a system you can trust so that you know that when you're in each activity, like you're going to take care of all the other roles and activities in their due time, right? And so that's really that's really valuable, and actually, provides a bit of an epiphany for myself, as I think about the struggles that I have sometimes too, and hopefully that's helpful for others. But yeah, struggles of creating the right balance, in between all the things that you want to do and do in life.
One other thought too, Earl, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Go.
One thing that's been helpful for me is realizing that I will never get done. And there's always going to be a new thing with my personality. And I think with a lot of people probably listening and checking this out with you and your business and Dan and his business, right? Nina, and everybody else, we'll never get done, and time will pass. And a lot of it, just realizing how much more it is about the journey. So I try to have a good day every day where, I get a little exercise in, spend some time with my family, just try to do those things where I can make it a day that I can put my stamp of approval on. And even if it's not the day, at least with the week, but where I'm not foregoing, all of my enjoyment and excitement to some future place that none of us have control over. So, we do a lot of traveling with our kids, and people are like, wow, how do you do this? And well, now you can do that because you have some money and you sold a business and you created your business in a way to allow you to do it. But yeah, in 2006, my dad and I worked together. We had 2 employees. We had 7 items on our website, or like 4. And then the rest was on eBay. My friends would say, hey, Dale, how's that set of shifters you have on your website, bikewagon.com? It's like, we really had 5. It was a crappy website. Like, what a way, not good at all, right? Failure. And, and I probably had probably had $3,000 or $4,000 to my name. I went to Europe for 2.5 months with my friends, and we rode 3,500 miles around and had fun. Was it a good time to do it? No, not necessarily. I could have hustled more, but you only have, there are times and seasons that will go away if you don't use them too. So
that's wise.
Just that journey element of, if you can, do some of those things that you want to do in 20 years, next year, or, then it also creates excitement. And, the first time I took my wife and we took our 3 kids to France in 2014 for 2 months. We rode about 1,200 miles camping all along the way, the Loire River, the Rhine, the Danube. It was amazing. Just when we came up with that idea, that was really a stretch. It also helped me, get motivated and like work so much harder in my business to get ready to leave for that. But I don't know, kind of a long answer, but
no, it's great.
But just that idea of, it's about the journey, and don't postpone all joy till later, because it'll never be enough. Even when you have money, you'll want more. And there's always some new problem, because we're problem solvers. So there's always going to be a problem, and it's never going to be like the right time. So I would just try to, those are a few thoughts.
No, this is really great. I really appreciate all the insight and you sharing your unique perspectives and what you've learned over the years. I think that we've become a society that is so in tune to instant gratification. And I think that honestly, it robs us so many times of the joy of the moment, because, we think I'm going to start, this business, day one from zero, no money, no clients, whatever it might be, and you have this vision that, in 12 months or 24 months, I'm going to be a smash success, right? And it's very wise, as you keyed in and talked about, be happy with the journey, be happy with the small steps, be happy with checking off one day at a time and saying, you know what, today was a success. Like maybe I did one thing different today that, that made today more enjoyable, or, I was able to make some progress on this initiative or this goal, or, maybe it's just I spent that, afternoon or evening with my kid. And so one day at a time, just enjoying that, and not getting, while having a vision of where ultimately you want to be and the outcomes you want to create, which, by the way, you're going to have to adjust along the way, because you're going to achieve some of those things. And if you don't rekey your purpose, you're going to find yourself purposeless, right? You're going to kind of find yourself with nothing to do and nowhere to go. But being okay with saying, I'm in this for the long haul, and it's going to take the time it's going to take. And maybe you put a defined timeline to that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like in fact, lots of professional or personal development experts would say, obviously, always define with specific timelines so that you're holding yourself to those. Now that's good, but it can also be distracting from being present in the moment. And so great advice, here to really just take your time and be okay with the process. Be okay with some days are going to be up and some days are going to be down. Some weeks and some months are going to be up and some are going to be down. And it's okay if you didn't achieve that entire vision in 2 months or whatever timeline it is, right? Really, really, really great. I like this a lot. Tell us a little bit about your process for focusing on the right things. What you've talked a little bit about, weekly planning, about being deliberate, but maybe let's refine and go a little deeper into that.
Yeah. Cool. And hey, Chuck, good to see you. We'll post a link to that article later after we do the video. It's just on my LinkedIn profile, the dry run. Thanks for checking in. Chuck is like a really amazing affiliate marketing guy that I knew at my days of Bike Wagon. So it's good to see you.
Well, Chuck and I know each other through kids soccer, actually. So.
Oh, rad.
Yeah.
So, how do I focus on the right things? And I kind of start to laugh because I'm like, man, good luck to me, focusing on the right things. Because I don't think I'm absolutely great at it, but how I've made it work for me anyways. So how I do it is, and this went back to, you were talking about purpose, like the importance of finding your purpose earlier, right? And getting clear about who you are. And one thing is I think that we're all wired to do some things really well, and then other things we're not wired to do well, and we may just fake it and do our best, but it's never going to be awesome, right? So, and some things are really exciting to us, and other things aren't that exciting, right? Some people love the big picture planning and the strategizing. Other people just want to tell me what to do, and we're going to start, getting traction today. Right. So figuring out who you are. And one tool for that is leveraging the experiences you've had that have been really high energy for you, looking at those and saying, oh, what conditions existed? Like I loved going to bike swaps when I was doing Bike Wagon. It was like Disneyland, probably my most favorite thing in life, going to this big dome, the Cow Palace in Denver or wherever it was, or San Francisco, and making deals with people all day long, building trust, negotiating, buying things, the variety, the treasure hunt. it was so fun to me. I would do it for free. I would have paid to do that. That was the most exciting part of my life for years and years and years. So I thought, oh, well, I like building trust with people. I like the discovery and the treasure hunt and, needing to make connections. I don't like when somebody says, just do this, and it's already established. There's no room for creativity. So I think it's really important as entrepreneurs to take the time to invest, to figure out what you're amazing at and what feeds you energy, what feeds you. Because if you do what you love, it's a whole lot easier to wake up in the morning. So I took a course with Deanna Murphy, who's on LinkedIn. She has a company called People Acuity. She's amazing. And there was this group training that was only like $1,500 when I did it or something. It's probably twice that now. But for like 10 months, we went through this course figuring out those types of things. And it was just amazing. And as an entrepreneur, as I became clear on what I was best at doing, that's how I figure out, as I come up with my goals, I want to spend most of my time doing things that give me energy. So meeting with other people, building connections, building trust, putting systems together. I really like a book by Gary Keller called The One Thing, because every time I read it, it says, wow, Dale, you're way too distracted and you need to focus, be more focused. So I've probably read that one a few times just to get that gut check of, okay, focus and really try to prioritize. Every part of the system is, every week I check in on what my priorities are, but that's almost too granular. So a lot of times every few months, if I feel my energy wane or, if I feel my energy wane, a lot of times I'll go back to the drawing board and say, what are the most important things that I could be accomplishing? And that seems to happen, every 2, 3, 4 months. I finish what I did. I don't feel as excited. We are really motivated when we have, I think that we're motivated when we know what we're going to do. We believe we can do it. And we have a path to like close that gap. We're like, oh, here's what I could get. And all I have to do is these things before then. And if we have a gap that we're actively closing and can close, then that brings this energy because we see it. If there's no gap and we just have things to do and we don't know what we're going to do them for, it's probably going to be low energy. If there's nothing we're closing, right? So after I sold my company, I lacked a lot of motivation because I didn't have this new purpose. What's the new what's Dale 2.0 going to do to get really excited? So I almost had to create a new gap. I just went away from our picture of how to focus, but I think that focus is so I don't think that anybody should listen to me on focus, actually. First off, maybe I should have started with that caveat, but that's what I do. Every few months I figure, what am I excited about, and how can I use my unique skills in the world to bring value. And then if I can do that and do things that I love doing, it just doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, very, very good advice. And really, it ties back to, living deliberately. And I think so few of us really put forth the effort to do that inventory, do that self-inspection and say, okay, what's been working for me for the last few weeks or few months or few years, whatever, right? And really dig into, as you mentioned, like what are high energy activities for me? What really fills me? And I have to be, I very much respect and admire what you've created there and the life that you've modeled based on that. And I have to say, again, going back to our friend Scott Paul, in a very unconventional manner, that's exactly what Scott has keyed in on. Like he's found out these are the things that I really excel at. They're the things I like to do. They're the things that give me energy. And I don't want to do anything else besides that, like nothing else besides that. And it's absolutely working for him. And he's been able in his very random way, very unconventional, without a whole lot of, really structured regimen and process and planning and procedure and all that kind of stuff. But that's his way, is to just kind of flow with what's happening in the moment, right? And be present in that. And and he's found a way to do it that a lot of us, I think would struggle with. I would struggle with. I have to have, and one of the reasons I have these guitars and I play guitar, I play music, is because I do enjoy and need a creative outlet. When I was a kid, I used to draw and paint, and so I have this artistic side to me, that has, as I've become an adult, really more translated into music than it has canvas. But I'm an engineer, and so I have this regimented kind of, logical thinking, side of who I am as an individual. And for me, I've found kind of a nice balance that I like. And it doesn't always flow, the way that I want it to, but, I try to live within that flow as much as possible. And so, maybe coming back around, and we're starting to run out of time here, and maybe finish up some parting statements, but to come back around, I think one of the key takeaways for me here is that you're your own individual, and that's okay. And you're on your own journey, and whatever that journey looks like, that's okay. Like, you're going to have knowledge and skill set gaps. You're going to need to grow as a person. You're going to need to grow as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a mother, father, husband, wife, whatever your roles are and that you define for yourself. But that growth can happen within the plan you set for yourself, and within the time frames that you set for yourself. Like, you don't have to be on anybody else's agenda, and you don't have to necessarily live your life exactly how other people tell you that you should live your life. Like, you define for yourself what's going to work for you, and you seek that out and create it for yourself. Is that?
Yeah. Well, and I would add, you engaged, or you deserve to be engaged in whatever way you do it, and that's kind of like, if you're going to take your kid to Spider-Man, are you going to just go and resent it and be on your phone the whole time? Or can you say, no, here's how I can be excited and completely engaged and show up in that way? And we're all going to be different. So I think that's the common, trend that we all want to find is, we're all wired differently. Just find something that brings the most out of you. And there's a lot of us who are stuck in things where we're not, where we're like, oh yeah, I really was on fire 10 years ago. Oh, wow. A few years ago in that position, I was really on fire. I'm a loser now. And we all have and realizing that we do have the potential to be really unmotivated and deliver, and be very unengaged. I've had several experiences in life where I was unengaged and I was the person that I'd fire in an instant. I think the goal is to not be stuck there very long. Recognize it after a few weeks instead of after a few years, and you get used to it. Really
great advice. Wise words. As we wind down the hour, any other parting thoughts, Bill, that you want to share?
No, I loved your emphasis on the purpose and figuring that out. One of the guys that just joined my mastermind group, he actually joined with that goal. He got a business into one of my current groups, the one after your guys. He got a business to a point where he could basically retire from it. And he's just, he has all this time on his hands, and everybody out there is like, oh, that'd be so amazing. No, it's just a new problem to solve where you're needing to figure out, oh, what are my true, what do I really want? And each of us, if each of us got a check for $10 million tomorrow, it'd be hard to be like, oh, wait, great. The money thing's all, off the table. How do I live an engaged life and be happy? Because it won't just happen magically. No, this has been really fun, Earl, to go through this with you.
It's been fantastic. I really appreciate your time, Dale. I appreciate you sharing your journey, your thoughts, your lessons. It's been extremely valuable to me. And I think for the crowd that's joined us today and will join us in the days and weeks to come on these recordings. So thank you. Thank you to everybody who's attended and interacted over this hour. Quick reminder that May 5th, Amelia Wilcox, the founder CEO of Zenovate, will be joining me for this Tech Beat podcast. Again, Amelia's journey over the past 12 months has been really amazing. She had a very, a thriving company that COVID completely disrupted. It was corporate massage, and went from millions in revenue a year to zero overnight. And then within 90 days, rebuilt the business based upon a wellness application called Zenovate, and was back to revenue, back to, pushing towards new heights within 90 days. It's been a really interesting journey. And getting to know Amelia and her story has been extremely valuable for me as well. So join us on May 5th again for that segment of Tech Beat. Thank you again, Dale. Thank you everybody for joining us. Everybody have a wonderful day, and we're gonna sign off. See y'all.
Thanks, Earl.
Yep.